Welcome to this edition of Project Natter. This is Black Lives Marxists Part 2. Joining me in this video is David Vance. If this is your first time here, please show your support for freedom of speech by hitting that subscribe button.
Tolerance is a preference of the far left, which portray everyone else as alright. Corbyn's poo tastes adorable, and if you
One, and we are live. Welcome, David. Thank you very much for joining.
Hi, pleasure to be here, David. Good to see you again.
Likewise. So just want to get your take on what's been going on with all the madness that we've been seeing. What have you made of it all?
Well, it seems like COVID-19 is so 2020, isn't it? Because now we've got race riots to get us concern ourselves. What I think is, David, quite honestly, the scenes that we've seen in London, in Bristol, scenes that we might see in Oxford shortly tonight are utterly disgraceful. And there's so many concerns I've got, David. Number one, the fact that these things are allowed to happen bothers me immensely. The failure of the rule of law, the failure of the political class. I mean, Boris Johnson and Priti Patel are the people who are responsible. In London, Cressida Dick proven to be useless. And not only that, but even like other police forces we've seen taking the knee in respect of a serial criminal in the United States who was sadly killed, not murdered, because that's not been proven, killed. And even today, I think, I understand the past hour or so, Parliament's had a minute's silence for a serial criminal. Well, I'm sorry, David, it strikes me as being things are really, really wrong. Morally wrong, politically wrong, weak, and this will not end well. It won't end well at all. What we're saying, you cannot have the people of this country, the law-abiding people. We've been told to stay at home, stay indoors, protect the NHS, save lives for 3 months, and then thousands of left-wing rabble run through the streets, looting, defacing our national monuments. And that's okay. It's not okay. It's just not.
I was just going to touch on that, actually. I wanted to ask you, so what do you make of all that? Because you've seen a lot of war memorials, and let's not forget a lot of blacks fought in World War II themselves, fought and died, so it's very disrespectful to them as well. We've been talking about this a lot online with people, and basically a lot of people are saying that the Black Lives Matter movement has been infiltrated by the left. We're seeing lots of communist signs have been sprayed on these statues and monuments, as well as being pulled down. Do you think there's any truth in that?
No, I don't think it's been infiltrated by Marxists. It is Marxist. There's been no infiltration. Anyone who understands, just got to go to their website, David, as we've chatted about. Go to their website, look at what their objectives. To me, I see Black Lives Matter as it's a kind of a strange hybrid of Marxism and feminism. It's a kind of toxic version of both. It's also, in my opinion, demonstrably a domestic terrorist organization. It should be banned. But if you look at what they want to achieve, I mean, this is where I get so annoyed at the political class. They state plainly they want to get rid of the police, defund the police. They want to empty the prisons. I wonder why. They want to redistribute wealth. Well, I'm sorry, that's reminding me of some ideology beginning with C. They're communists. It's dead simple. And it's in plain sight. And so that's why, they are clearly using race in a terrible way. As you say, David, we've seen the cenotaph in London, which marks where people of all colours gave their lives in defence of our country, fighting tyrannies abroad. And they were trying to, they were trying to deface it, to burn the flag. These people have contempt for our values. And that's why I think we should reciprocate. I have absolute contempt for their values. They're not about making lives better for black people. They're about setting races against each other. So they're race baiters and they're hideous and they need to be faced down.
And what do you make of Sadiq Khan's decision to set up this Commission of Diversity. So basically, looking to review statues and monuments and even street names and replace them with stuff that is more diverse. I don't know what they're going to replace them with. Perhaps we might see some statues in London of Robert Mugabe, Idi Amin, Osama bin Laden, perhaps to represent the 55,000 Islamic extremists on a MI5 watch list.
Well, I think the best comment I actually saw, David, on social media was actually by one of my colleagues on Alt News Media, who tweeted out that if you want to have something to represent London in 2020 to replace Nelson's column, stick up a 200-foot switchblade. That would be more representative of London in 2020, wouldn't it? And as for Sadiq Khan, I mean, seriously, this guy needs run out of town. This guy, to my mind, has presided over London resembling like a third world you-know-what, and beginning with S and ending in Hull. And so, this idea that he now wants to review the statues of our history because he doesn't like them, it's very sinister. And I'll tell you why it's very sinister. Because it seems to me, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, I'm sure the people that watch this, many of them may agree, it's like they're wanting to erase our history. And I understand that slavery constitutes a problem for many people today, and for Black people. I get that. I mean, I'm sympathetic to that. But it happened hundreds of years ago. And, I put out a live stream last night, and we talked about this. I talked to Rebecca Butler about this. The past is the past. I can't undo what was done 200 years ago. And furthermore, in the moment of a couple hundred years ago, it was actually something that all around the world people were doing. And if you want to talk about slavery, let's talk about modern slavery, shall we? In the UK right now today, where's Sadiq Khan about that? What's he doing about the slaves being kept in places like London, people from Eastern Europe, people around the country and other cities being kept by certain gangs? Young girls being kept as virtual slaves. So, I think Sadiq Khan is a wretched creature. I think he is causing so much damage to our country. And, quite honestly, we have to stand up for our culture, because once they take the statues down, then they'll take the rest of us down. They're erasing Britain. Britain has to say, no, enough. Absolutely not one statue should come down.
It does seem that other cultures are superseding ours. Here in England, if we, to celebrate St. George's Day, I'm sure you see this in the papers. There was one house, she had a St. George's flag outside the front of her house, and this woman had her house attacked. They graffitied racist or Nazi something outside her house and threw loads of bags of dog manure and stuff in her garden. And yet, it's so taboo to celebrate the nation's patron saint, and yet we have Carnival every year, which in London, which celebrates the identity and cultures of all Black cultures and whatnot. And every year there's stabbings, every year there's people stabbed up, and it goes ahead. When you compare the two, it just shows you that there is a serious battle of cultures going on. It's my personal opinion.
Well, see, this is the problem about multiculturalism. You see, I oppose multiculturalism for the simple reason that what you've just said is absolutely correct, David. If you bring in different cultures, they fight for supremacy amongst each other. It's not good. I support multi-ethnicity, but that's a different thing. So, people of all skin colors, that's fine. No problems with that. But we are Britain. We have a British culture. So it does seem to me very reasonable to say to people, if you want to be part of Britain, you've got to accept our culture. You don't come here to erase our culture. But because of the supine weakness of successive generations of politicians, and not only that, but across the whole system, and egged on by the absolutely scum media, we're kind of being put in a position where, as you've just said, English culture is being made to feel inferior in England. Well, come on. How's that one going to end up? And, and that's why I'm very worried about this, because rather than assert British culture for what it is and celebrate that. It's been chipped away at to the point, a bit like the statue we saw in Bristol yesterday, where it's going to be toppled over. And the results could be something that this country hasn't seen in arguably centuries, where some of our big cities have significant ethnic populations. Some of those ethnicities clearly hate us. So I don't want to see that. I want to see people living in harmony. But, I'm not John Lennon. I'm not here to sing Imagine. I'm here to say that this is Britain, respect British culture. And if you don't like it, I'll tell you what, there's lots of countries in the world you can try. I hear that there's certain African countries seem quite charming at this time of the year. Why not go back to some of those if that's where your ancestors hail from? And many of them did. So, plus the other thing, sorry, just to say this while I'm at it, we're told how racist this country is, and yet there are millions of Africans wanting to come here. Please explain. How does that work? We're racist, but you want to come here. Well, doesn't make sense to me. So I don't think this country is racist, David, I have to say. I think the UK and the US as well, but the UK in particular, people are remarkably accommodating. But when the people that we accommodate seek to replace us and our culture, our heritage, our monuments, our traditions, that's enough. Game over.
It is, and it seems that anyone who speaks out against it, if you've got any negative to say, we can all talk about the positives all day long. But if you talk about any negatives, instantly you're shut down. You're called a Nazi, a racist, a xenophobe, all sorts of names, as we know. You've had this. You have this every day on Twitter. I do admire you. But there was a tweet I remember a while ago. You had a little spat with Stormzy when Stormzy. He's also been at these riots, and he was saying that the UK is 100% racist, and you called him out on that. But Stormzy is a successful black British rapper. If there was this oppression and whatnot, he wouldn't be where he was today.
Yeah, there's no sense of irony with these people. This is a problem. Although the good news about Stormzy is, I think in the past week, he has come out and admitted that his use of narcotics, illegal drugs, was very bad for his health, and he stopped that now. So I'm hoping that once that's finally kicked in, he'll do the decent thing and apologise to me, because I'm owed an apology by Stormzy, because all I pointed out to him was that man becomes millionaire in country that he claims is racist, and man is black man. Nah, I'm sorry, Stormzy. Like so many we've seen, like Anthony Joshua, like a lot, so many of these guys, David, who have done really well in this country, and good luck to them. I don't begrudge them a penny, but to turn around on that very country that's made them wealthy and say, John Barnes is another one, and criticize us as being institutionally racist. The only place that's got any credulity is actually in the salons of the BBC and Sky and or the rest of the scum media who share the same narrative. Because I think that's been the other problem. All of this is being inflamed by the media. Do you know? They are acting as accomplices to Black Lives Matter, and and that's, I think, deplorable. But that's part of our problem. We face a scum media as well as Black Lives Matter.
So, David, what's your take on the way the media have been reporting it? We've seen the BBC have been called out because obviously, I don't know if you've seen that image that they cropped. So you've got the riot police, and it looks like the riot police are attacking. But the bigger picture is a guy standing there with a big plank of wood about to strike the police.
Yep.
They've been reporting them on being peaceful, and we know they're not. We've seen footage from the ground. What do you make of it all?
Well, David, for a long time, I've been an arch critic of the UK media. And actually, it summed it up for me the other day. The headline, I think it was Sunday morning's BBC headline, where it was, I think the actual headline was 27 police officers injured in largely peaceful protests. What? Come on. I mean, seriously? And in fact, actually, the number I think ended up 47 police officers were injured, some of them quite severely, in these what the BBC calls peaceful protests. So, like, I wonder, for example, if a group of people went round to the BBC, ran rampant through the BBC headquarters, and injured 47 members of staff in the BBC. Would the BBC record that as a largely peaceful protest? Do you think they would? No, the BBC and Sky and all of them, none of them are any good. They've been useless in this past year, David. They've been useless during the coronavirus thing. Because they seem to be resentful that we elected a Conservative government in December. They didn't want that, so we elected Boris, and for all his weaknesses, it's a Conservative government. And since then, they've gone through this 6 months now of what. Trying to do gotchas with the Tories over coronavirus, and now trying to tell us and everyone, tell us that we're all racist. My advice to anybody, honestly, is, and this comes with long years of experience, if you want to know what's happening, do not watch any UK media, legacy media. Go onto YouTube, look on social media, look on Twitter. There's lots of people around telling you the truth. The media, people like Piers Morgan, the guy needs psychiatric help, in my opinion. Kay Burley, these people, in my view, they're in need of medication.
They are. They're very special. I couldn't have put it better myself. Yeah. What do you see? So your final thoughts. Where do you see the UK heading now? Like, what's the way out of this? Or if this isn't nipped in the bud now, it's going to, we're literally going to lose our identity. We're going to lose our culture and our way of life. What ways do you think we could nip this in the bud? Stop them in their tracks.
Well, I think there's two things. We face a choice here. We accept population replacement and cultural replacement, in which case we stop being the UK, we stop being England. I don't think anyone's up for. I don't think many people are up for that. Or, and this is the choice, we have to assert the rule of law. We have to ensure that the mobs that are rampaging through our towns and cities, defacing, toppling things over, are confronted. And that happens tonight. The mob are going to Oxford. 5 o'clock, I believe, they're due to gather to try and take down the statue of Rhodes at Oxford University. Now, this is a critical moment. I've tweeted at Boris Johnson and Priti Patel earlier. You've got a choice now. We'll know very soon, David. Will the government stand by the rule of law and protect our heritage, or will they let the mob tear it down? And we're going to know in a few short hours' time. I don't know, but I'll tell you what, and to finish on is this, that, if the police and the politicians won't do it, I suspect, and I could be wrong, but there's many patriotic English and British people more generally who will stand up and say enough. And since I'm a great advocate of the rule of law, I don't want to see anything happen outside the rule of law. But, frankly, if you're not prepared to enforce the rule of law, then you leave the door open for others to have to step in. And when we see, for example, David, has happened, as you know, on Saturday in Parliament Green, the Churchill plinth being defaced, the police having moved away people who were there to protect it and let the mob in to deface it, then this is a big challenge for law and order in this country. And as I say, we're going to know very shortly where things stand. But I know what I want, and what I ultimately want, final word in this is, I want our British heritage upheld. I want us to assert the rule of law to all, not just those who obey coronavirus instructions. And I want to see organizations like Black Lives Matter declared as domestic terrorist organizations. That'll be a good starting point. Let's see what happens.
Well, I think you're bang on the money there, David. Thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it. So everyone watching, please show your support for freedom of speech and make sure you hit the subscribe button. David, you take care of yourself, and we'll speak to you soon.
Okay, best wishes, David.